The first thing I noticed was the light, searing, unnatural, and piercing, straight through my skull. My breath hitched as a dull, throbbing pain spread from the back of my head. I tried to sit up, but the world tilted, nausea twisting my stomach. The taste of cheap vodka and regret clung to my tongue. I wasn't in my bed. Blinking against the brightness, I forced myself to take in my surroundings. Green metal bars, a concrete bench, the unmistakable scent of disinfectant and stale sweat. A jail cell. My stomach churned as I turned my head too fast. That was a mistake. The sickly heat of nausea surged up my throat, and I barely managed to lean over before vomiting onto the cold floor. "Nice," a voice drawled. "Real classy." A man in uniform sat outside the cell, his boots propped on a desk. He didn't even bother looking up from his phone. His badge read Jenkins. My pulse pounded. What the hell had I done last night? Memories slithered back like a half-remembered nightmare. Drinks, laughter, the hum of an engine, the sharp crack of knuckles against my face. But it was all a blur. "Glad you're awake," Jenkins said, finally looking up. His eyes were sharp, too sharp, like he enjoyed this. "You really outdid yourself, kid." I swallowed past the lump in my throat. "What happened?" Jenkins leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "Let's see. You got wasted. Decided to drive. Almost ran over a whole damn family crossing the street." My stomach dropped. "You punched your friend in the face when he tried to take your keys," Jenkins continued. "You resisted arrest. And now you're looking at some serious consequences." The words hit like bricks. I tried to protest, tried to say that it wasn't me, that I would never. But deep down, I knew. It sounded like something drunk me would do. Mom's face flashed in my mind. She'd worked herself to the bone, saving for my future. I was supposed to be in college. A year ago, I'd had everything. Now, I was just another screw-up waiting for a judge to decide my fate. Jenkins sighed. "You got two choices, Brandon. Either you take your punishment, likely a year in jail, maybe longer, or—" He reached into his pocket, pulled out a crumpled flyer, and slid it across the desk. I hesitated before picking it up. The paper was yellowed at the edges, like it had been handled 1,000 times before. The message was simple. Spend the night at the Cromwell estate. Earn $10,000. No strings attached. My blood turned cold. Everyone in town knew about Cromwell estate. The last time someone took that offer, they were never seen again. Jenkins smirked. "Your call, kid." I stared at the flyer, my pulse thudding in my ears. The words blurred as my mind reeled. Cromwell estate. Everyone in town knew the stories. Two kids, James Carter and Mia Alvarez, had vanished after taking the same offer our freshman year. Before them, there were rumors of others, stretching back decades. Some people claimed they'd run away, but those who grew up here knew better. The ones who went into Cromwell estate never came back. I swallowed hard and looked up at Officer Jenkins. His smirk hadn't faded. "This some kind of joke?" My voice came out hoarse, my throat raw from the vomit. "No joke, kid." He leaned back in his chair, propping his feet up again. "You go in. You last until sunrise. You walk out 10 grand richer. Simple as that." "Yeah, real simple," I muttered, "except no one ever comes back." Jenkins let out a dry chuckle. "Not true. People come back. Not a lot, but some. And hey, you got guts, right?" His eyes gleamed. "You made some bad choices. Now you've got a chance to make up for them. Unless you'd rather rot in a cell." I clenched my jaw. My hands tightened into fists. A year in jail, Mom visiting me through thick glass, eyes filled with disappointment. My entire future gone. Or one night. One night in that place. My stomach churned at the thought, but deep down I already knew my answer. "When do I start?" Jenkins' grin widened. He stood up, stretching like he'd been waiting for this. "Attaboy, let's get you cleaned up." The sun was just beginning to set when I stood in front of Cromwell estate. The place looked like something out of a gothic horror novel. 3 stories of looming darkness, its windows like empty eyes watching my every move. The iron gate in front was rusted and covered in twisting vines, its metal warped as if something had tried to force its way out. The mansion itself was old, its stone exterior cracked and weathered, yet something about it felt alive. Officer Jenkins walked me to the entrance, but didn't step past the gate. "You're on your own from here," he said, handing me an old-fashioned pocket watch. The silver casing was tarnished, its face cracked. "Keep an eye on the time, trust me." "That's it? No weapons? No flashlight?" Jenkins just laughed. "You think a flashlight's going to help you in there?" He clapped a hand on my shoulder. "Just follow the rules, kid. That's all that matters." Before I could ask what the hell that meant, he turned and walked away. The iron gate slammed shut behind him with a finality that made my skin crawl. I took a deep breath and stepped forward. The front door swung open before I could touch it. A girl stood in the doorway. She was tall and thin, her purple hair falling past her shoulders in silky waves. Small curved horns peeked from beneath her bangs, glistening under the dim porch light. Her eyes, slitted like a cat's, glowed an unnatural gold. "Well, well," she purred, "another delicious little morsel." Every instinct screamed at me to run. Instead, I forced my feet to stay planted. "You must be the welcome committee." She laughed, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "You may call me Jezebel." She stepped aside, gesturing for me to enter. "Come in, won't you?" I hesitated, but the wind had picked up behind me, howling through the trees. There was no turning back now. I stepped inside. The air changed the second I crossed the threshold. It was thicker, like moving through invisible cobwebs. The mansion's interior was wrong. Too big, too dark, the walls stretching endlessly in both directions. Chandeliers flickered above, casting long, dancing shadows across the marble floor. The door slammed shut behind me. Jezebel clapped her hands together. "Now then, let's get to the fun part." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled note card. "These are the rules," she said, handing it to me. My fingers trembled as I read, "If you hear the Yeti roar, hide. Eat anything offered, except clementines. Do not fall asleep. If you meet a dahlia, never read her writing. Keep moving. The void hunts slow prey. If you see Master Cromwell, bow." I swallowed hard. My mouth had gone completely dry. Jezebel watched me, amusement flickering in her golden eyes. "Simple enough, yes." I looked up from the card. "And what happens if I break the rules?" Her grin widened, revealing sharp, inhuman teeth. "You'll wish you were in jail." Jezebel's words lingered in my mind like a sickness. "You'll wish you were in jail?" I clenched the rule card tightly, the paper damp from my sweating fingers. The rules were simple, on the surface, but every word carried a weight I didn't yet understand. Jezebel smirked, watching me like a cat playing with a wounded bird. "You look nervous." I swallowed hard. "You didn't mention what happens if I survive the night." Her smile didn't fade, but something in her gaze sharpened. "You get to leave with 10 grand. She said it so easily, but I caught the flicker of something behind her eyes. A lie, or at least a half-truth. Jezebel turned on her heel, her heeled boots clicking against the marble floor. "Come along, darling, the house won't wait for you." The moment she walked away, the shadows in the hallway seemed to stretch. The air grew heavier, charged like the seconds before a thunderstorm. I hurried after her, trying to ignore the feeling of invisible eyes on my back. The mansion was bigger than it looked from the outside. The hallways twisted and stretched, some vanishing into inky black voids, while others looped in impossible ways. I passed doorways that led to nothing, just sheer, yawning blackness beyond the threshold. The deeper we walked, the more I felt the walls breathe around me. After what felt like hours but could have been minutes, we entered a grand dining hall. A chandelier the size of a car hung above a long wooden table, its candles flickering with an eerie blue glow. The walls were lined with ancient paintings, their subjects shifting when I wasn't looking. The food was already waiting, steaming plates of roasted meat, golden loaves of bread, bubbling soups, exotic fruits I didn't recognize. My stomach growled despite the unease curling in my gut. Jezebel perched on the edge of the table, plucking a grape from a crystal bowl. "You must be starving." I hesitated. Rule number 2, eat anything offered, except clementines. I scanned the table, spotting a silver bowl filled with bright orange clementines. They looked perfect, like something out of a commercial, the skin smooth and flawless. Jezebel followed my gaze and smirked. Smart boy. I sat down and reached for a slice of bread, tearing off a piece and popping it into my mouth. The taste was indescribable, warm, buttery, rich with flavors I couldn't name. I barely swallowed before grabbing another bite. Careful, Jezebel mused. You wouldn't want to overdo it. I slowed, glancing at her. What do you mean? She leaned in, her golden eyes glittering. Food in this house is different. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Different how? Jezebel licked her lips. Let's just say, some guests who eat too much find it difficult to leave. My hands went still. I forced myself to push the plate away. The hunger gnawed at me, but something told me she wasn't bluffing. Jezebel watched me for another moment, then grinned. You're learning. A low, distant roar rumbled through the house. The room went silent. The air froze, not just in temperature, but in feeling, like the whole house was holding its breath. I turned to Jezebel, my pulse spiking. What was that? She didn't answer. She just pointed. I followed her gaze to a doorway at the far end of the dining hall. Beyond it, the corridor stretched into darkness, but I could hear it now. Footsteps, heavy, lumbering, and getting closer. I shot to my feet. What? Jezebel vanished. I didn't see her move. One moment she was there, the next she was gone, leaving only the flickering candlelight behind. The roar came again, louder, closer. Rule number 1. If you hear the Yeti roar, hide. I didn't have time to think. My eyes darted across the room. The table, too open. The cabinets, too small. Then I saw the drapes. A long velvet curtain hung against the far wall, half concealing a narrow alcove. I lunged for it, just as the footsteps thundered into the room. I barely had time to pull the curtain shut before it appeared. A massive, hulking figure stomped into view. I had never seen a Yeti in real life, but this wasn't just a Yeti, it was something worse. It stood nearly 9 feet tall, its white fur streaked with black veins that pulsed like living things. Its eyes burned like embers, its breath misting in the air. The thing's arms were too long, its clawed hands dragging against the floor. Its mouth, dear God, its mouth, was lined with jagged, mismatched teeth, some broken, others growing at impossible angles. The Yeti sniffed the air. My heart slammed against my ribs. I pressed myself flat against the wall, barely daring to breathe. The Yeti grunted. The silent screams, the channel of interesting horror stories. If you are new on this channel, then don't forget to subscribe The Silent Screams and press the bell icon for interesting stories. Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe. It moved toward the table. I watched, barely blinking, as it reached out with one massive hand and picked up a clementine. My stomach twisted. The creature peeled it, slowly, deliberately. Then it raised a chunk of fruit to its mouth and devoured it in one bite. The second it swallowed, something changed. Its body convulsed. It let out a wet, choking sound, its massive form shuddering violently. Its fur darkened, its eyes rolling back as a black, oozing substance dripped from its mouth. The Yeti collapsed. For several agonizing seconds, the room was silent. Then, slowly, the thing began to move again. But it wasn't the same. Its body cracked and twisted, its limbs elongating unnaturally. Its once massive torso shrunk, folding inward like something was devouring it from the inside out. I felt bile rise in my throat. The Yeti's form collapsed into itself, its flesh melting away, leaving only a thin, slinking shadow that twisted and writhed before oozing into the floorboards like smoke. Then it was gone. I stood there, frozen. The house let out a low, satisfied creak. The air shifted like something had been fed. I exhaled shakily. What the hell was this place? I didn't move for a long time. My breath came in short, ragged gasps, my fingers trembling as I clutched the curtain. The Yeti, or whatever it had become, was gone. But the house felt fuller somehow, as if it had taken something from that thing and absorbed it. I wanted to believe my mind was playing tricks on me, but deep down I knew the truth. This house was alive, and it was hungry. I peeled myself away from the alcove, my legs still shaky. My fingers brushed the rule card in my pocket, its edges crumpled and damp from my sweat. I'd survived my first real encounter, but there were 5 more rules. I forced myself to move. Staying still felt wrong, like lingering too long in one place would draw something else to me. I stepped out of the dining hall into a hallway that hadn't been there before. The moment I crossed the threshold, the door behind me vanished. I turned sharply, my stomach lurching. Where the dining hall had been, there was now only a long corridor stretching into shadow. The walls were lined with portraits, each one old and yellowed, their frames thick with dust. The faces in the paintings were off. Some were missing eyes, others had their mouths sewn shut. One had a hand pressed against the glass, as if trying to push through. I shivered. "Keep moving," I muttered to myself. I walked forward, keeping my eyes ahead, but I could feel the paintings watching me. My skin prickled as if unseen fingers were brushing against the back of my neck. Then I saw it. At the end of the hallway, a small wooden desk sat beneath an ornate chandelier. A single sheet of paper rested on its surface. My pulse quickened. Rule number 4, if you meet a dahlia, never read her writing. I froze mid-step. The hallway stretched behind me, long and endless. Going back wasn't an option. I forced my eyes away from the desk, careful not to look at the paper. "Don't read it. Don't even glance." A soft voice whispered behind me, "Please." I went rigid. The whisper was faint, barely audible. But it was close. Too close. I turned my head slightly, catching a glimpse from the corner of my eye. A girl stood just outside the chandelier's dim glow. Her hair was matted, falling over her face in tangled strands. Her dress, once white, was stained dark at the hem, as if she'd walked through ink. Her arms hung limply at her sides, and in one pale, bony hand she clutched a pen. I knew her name before she even spoke. Adalia. She stepped forward, the sound of her bare feet soft against the wood. "I don't want to be alone anymore," she whispered. Her voice was fragile, like something on the verge of breaking. "Please, just read it." My throat went dry. She took another step, and I forced myself backward. My foot nearly caught on the carpet, but I didn't dare take my eyes off her. She held the paper toward me, her fingers trembling. "Just one word," she begged. "Don't read it." I clenched my fists. "I can't." Adalia stopped. For a moment there was silence. Then her head twitched sharply to the side. Her fingers curled, crumpling the paper slightly. Her voice dropped to something darker. Something wrong. "Read it, Brandon." My stomach turned to ice. She knows my name. I backed away faster now, my hands trembling. Her breath hitched, and a low guttural sob tore from her throat. The sound was full of despair, a sorrow so deep it nearly dragged me under with her. "You're just like the rest," she whimpered. "You'll leave me here." Her body shuddered violently. Then her head snapped up. Her eyes were gone. Where they should have been, there was only blackness. A deep, endless void that seemed to pull at me, like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, staring into something far worse than death. The paper in her hand burst into flames. She screamed. The whole hallway shook, the paintings rattling against the walls. The chandelier above flickered wildly as shadows twisted and stretched across the ceiling. I turned and ran. The hallway seemed longer now, stretching endlessly as my feet pounded against the floor. The air grew thick, sticky, like I was wading through something unseen. Behind me, Adalia's voice howled in agony. "You'll forget me too, just like they all did." A gust of wind slammed into my back, nearly knocking me forward. The walls groaned, shifting like they were alive. Then a door. I didn't hesitate. I threw myself at it, shoving it open and stumbling inside. The door slammed shut behind me. Silence. The air was still. I turned, my chest heaving. I was in a study, ornate bookshelves lining the walls, a grand wooden desk in the center. A fireplace crackled softly in the corner, casting flickering light across the room. But something was wrong. My hands were shaking, my skin tingled, like something had touched me. I lifted my left wrist. A word had been scrawled there, in black ink. A single word. "Remember." My stomach twisted. I didn't write this. I didn't even look at the page. But Adalia's writing had found me anyway. And I had a horrible feeling that no matter what happened tonight, I wouldn't be leaving this house alone. I stared at the word on my wrist. "Remember." The ink was cold against my skin, like it had seeped underneath instead of being written on top. I tried to rub it away, but it didn't smudge. It was part of me now. My breath came in shallow gasps. What did Adalia do to me? I didn't have time to think about it. A low creaking filled the room, the sound of old wood shifting under weight. My head snapped toward the bookshelf. The shadows there were wrong, too deep, too still. A voice echoed in my mind. Rule number 5, keep moving. The void hunts slow prey. My body tensed, then I saw it. A darkness at the edge of the room, creeping from the spaces where the firelight didn't touch. It wasn't a shadow. It was something else. It slid across the floor like thick black tar, pulsing, growing, reaching. I stepped back. It moved faster. My stomach clenched. Keep moving. I turned sharply and ran. I hit the door hard, twisting the handle, locked. The void slithered closer, whispering against the wood floors. My eyes darted around the room. Think. Think. Then I saw it. A second door. I lunged for it, shoving it open. A narrow hallway stretched beyond, the walls lined with flickering oil lamps. I rushed through and slammed the door behind me, my breath ragged. The moment the latch clicked, the whispers stopped. Silence. I pressed my ear against the wood. No movement, no sound, but I knew better than to believe I was safe. I forced my legs to move, my muscles burning from tension. The hallway twisted and turned, narrowing in places until I had to squeeze through. The walls were too close, pressing in like they wanted to swallow me whole. The lamps flickered. Then, one by one, they started going out. Panic surged through me. I picked up my pace. A gust of cold air whipped past me, except there were no windows, no vents. The void was here. I sprinted. The hallway blurred around me as I ran, the shadows curling at the edges of my vision. The house was shifting. I could feel it. The walls groaned, the floor stretching like it wanted to drag me backward. Then, a staircase. I nearly tripped down the first step, my momentum carrying me forward. The stairs twisted downward, spiraling into what looked like a grand entryway. I knew this place. I'd seen it when I first entered the mansion, the foyer with its massive double doors and checkered marble floors. But something was wrong. The chandelier overhead swayed, its crystals clinking like wind chimes. The air felt heavier, like it was pushing against me. And then, I saw the doors, wide open, a gaping exit into the night. The outside world waited just beyond, the mansion's iron gates visible in the distance. My chest heaved. I took a single step forward. And then I heard it. A voice. Software. Familiar. Brandon. I froze. The word had come from behind me. Slowly, I turned my head. Jezebel stood at the base of the stairs. Her golden eyes flickered in the dim light, her arms crossed. But there was something different about her now. Her playful smirk was gone. You should close that door, she said softly. My heart pounded. Why? Her expression didn't change. Because it isn't real. I swallowed hard. She took a slow step forward, her heeled boots clicking against the marble. The house is testing you. I didn't want to believe her, but something in my gut told me she wasn't lying. The air around the doors seemed off, a little too still. The world outside looked flat, like a painting. Even the iron gates in the distance didn't feel right. I took another step forward, my pulse hammering. Jezebel's voice dropped to a whisper. If you leave now, you'll never wake up again. I stopped. A low, distant chuckle rumbled through the house. The void. A shiver ran down my spine. The doors shrank. No, not shrank. Folded. The world beyond them bent and twisted, like fabric being pulled into itself. I took a sharp step back. Jezebel sighed. Smart boy. She snapped her fingers and the doors snapped shut. For a moment the whole house shuddered. The air went thick, the walls groaning like something was unhappy. Then silence. I exhaled shakily. Jezebel smirked. Not bad, rookie. I figured you'd be void food by now. I glared at her. You knew that would happen? Of course. She shrugged. Everyone gets a door. It's part of the test. I clenched my fists. And if I had walked through? Her smirk widened. You'd be part of the house now. The words settled like a rock in my gut. I didn't respond, couldn't, because deep down I knew she was telling the truth. I had nearly walked into nothingness. Jezebel watched me for a moment, then rolled her shoulders. Come on, Master Cromwell's expecting you. Cromwell. I'd almost forgotten. The demon lord who ran this nightmare. Jezebel motioned toward a nearby hallway, one I hadn't noticed before. The entryway beyond it stretched too long, its walls pulsing like veins. I didn't want to go in there, but I didn't have a choice. I took a slow, steady breath. Then, without another word, I followed her into the dark. Jezebel led me down the impossibly long hallway, her horns casting eerie shadows against the flickering candlelight. I didn't ask where we were going. It didn't matter. I had a feeling that Cromwell already knew I was coming. The air grew colder the deeper we went. The walls changed, no longer wood or wallpaper, but something else entirely. Black marble, veined with gold. The material pulsed, faintly warm beneath my fingertips, as if it had a heartbeat. Don't touch the walls, Jezebel muttered. I jerked my hand away. She glanced at me over her shoulder, her expression unreadable. The house is alive, you know. Master Cromwell made it that way. I swallowed hard but said nothing. We reached a grand set of double doors at the hallway's end. Towering slabs of obsidian engraved with symbols I couldn't understand. Something moved behind the surface. I tried not to stare. Jezebel knocked once. The sound echoed like thunder. The doors swung open. Try not to embarrass yourself, she said, stepping aside. I hesitated, then cautiously I walked inside. Cromwell's office was wrong. It wasn't just a room, it was a world. A massive desk sat in the center, carved from a dark wood that seemed to drink the light. Behind it, bookshelves stretched impossibly high, disappearing into an endless misty void. Strange plants lined the walls, blue roses that pulsed, vines that moved like fingers. The back wall wasn't a wall at all. It was a giant aquarium. Creatures swam inside, not fish, not anything I recognized. One had a human face, its lips curled in silent whispers. Another had too many eyes, each one shifting and rolling in different directions. I forced myself to look away. And that's when I saw him. Master Cromwell. He was seated at his desk, watching me with quiet amusement. He looked human, almost. A tall man dressed in a black suit, his hands folded neatly in front of him. His skin had an unnatural sheen, like polished stone, and his hair was the color of deep ink. But his horns gave him away. They curled upward from his temples, golden and smooth, as if they had been sculpted. And his eyes, they weren't human. They were black as the void, swirling like an ocean storm. Brandon, Cromwell said, his voice smooth, effortless. Welcome to my home. I couldn't speak. Something about his presence made my chest feel tight, like I was standing in the gravity of something much, much larger than myself. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. I obeyed. Jezebel leaned against a nearby bookshelf, arms crossed, watching silently. Cromwell tilted his head, studying me. You're stronger than I expected. Most break before they reach my door. I licked my dry lips. I'm still here. His lips curled into a smile, a small, knowing thing. For now. The words sent a chill through me. Cromwell reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a thin envelope. He slid it across the desk. Your payment, he said simply. I stared at it. $10,000. All I had to do was take it. But something in my gut screamed at me to stop. My fingers hesitated. That's it? I asked. I can just leave? Cromwell chuckled. It was a deep, rich sound, filled with something older than humor. You've survived the night, haven't you? He leaned forward slightly. Take the money, walk out that door. You'll wake up safe in your bed. Jezebel's expression was unreadable. I reached for the envelope. Then I stopped. Something didn't feel right. I thought of Adalia's warning, of the void that had almost tricked me into stepping into nothingness. I pulled my hand back. Cromwell's smile widened. Clever boy. I stiffened. He tapped the envelope. Do you know what this really is? I shook my head. His voice softened. like a teacher explaining something to a student. This isn't just money, Brandon. This is a contract. My breath hitched. Cromwell leaned back, watching me carefully. The moment you take this envelope, you become mine. Body and soul. The room felt smaller. The shadows in the corners seemed to grow deeper, curling like living things. You've done well to survive this far, Cromwell continued, but I don't offer these invitations lightly. You weren't chosen at random. You were chosen because I see potential. The air was thick, pressing against my skin. A slow, sinking horror twisted in my gut. Join me, Brandon, Cromwell said smoothly, and I'll offer you far more than just money. I swallowed hard, and if I say no? His smile didn't waver, but the room did. The lights dimmed. The aquarium behind him rippled, the creatures inside moving closer, watching. Jezebel shifted slightly, her golden eyes flicking between me and her master. Cromwell let out a slow breath, as if savoring the moment. Then you may leave, he said. But know this, the house will not forget you. A sharp pressure wrapped around my chest. Cromwell's voice was softer now, almost gentle. Everything has a price, Brandon. The shadows crept closer. The question is, are you willing to pay it? Cromwell's words hung in the air like a noose tightening around my throat. Everything has a price. I could feel the weight of his stare, those bottomless black eyes pulling me in like a whirlpool. The envelope still sat between us, thin and harmless. Except it wasn't. It was a contract, a trap. I clenched my fists. I don't want to be part of this place. Cromwell's smile didn't falter. He tapped his fingers against the desk, considering me. You misunderstand, Brandon. You're already part of it. A chill ran down my spine. You stepped into my house. You ate my food. You played by my rules. You think you're leaving here the same as before. He shook his head, amused. No, no. You were mine the moment you agreed to the deal. I forced myself to breathe evenly. You said I could leave. His smile widened. I did. And you can. A long pause. But you will never be free. The aquarium behind him rippled, the creatures inside shifting, their eyes, so many eyes, fixed on me. The bookshelves stretched higher, the mist between them swirling. I had the awful feeling that something was watching from the void beyond. Cromwell's fingers drummed against the desk. You think you're the first? I frowned. He gestured to the room around us. Do you know where you are? My mouth felt dry. Your office, he chuckled. Number this is a graveyard. I stiffened. He leaned forward, resting his chin on his hand. Every poor soul who took this deal and failed sits on these shelves, trapped in these books, locked behind these glass walls. They gambled with something they didn't understand, and they lost. A cold dread spread through me. I turned to the bookshelves. They were massive, filled with hundreds of books, each one bound in deep leather, their spines glinting with gold inscriptions. I stepped closer, and that's when I saw it. The books weren't labeled with titles, they were labeled with names. Jonathan Wells, Margaret Thatcher, Daniel Holloway, Adalia Ross. My breath hitched. Adalia, the girl who had saved me. I reached out, hesitating before running my fingers along the book's surface. The cover was warm, faintly pulsing. A whisper curled through my mind, soft and distant. Run. I jerked my hand away. Cromwell watched me with dark amusement. Touching their stories is dangerous. Some of them haven't fully settled yet. A sickening realization dawned on me. This is what happens when you lose, I whispered. Cromwell inclined his head. When you fail, yes. My chest tightened. And when you win. He chuckled. Nobody wins. A thick silence stretched between us. The weight of the room pressed down on me. You can walk out that door, Cromwell said smoothly. Take your money, leave this house. But know this, a debt was made the moment you stepped inside. I swallowed hard. He leaned back, watching me carefully. Sooner or later, the house will call for you again. My blood ran cold. Maybe it'll be next week. Maybe next year. Maybe 10 years from now. But the house always collects. His words wrapped around my throat like a noose. Your only choice is when. A long pause. Then finally, he pushed the envelope toward me again. Or you could stay. Accept your place here. Learn the rules of the house properly. I looked down at the envelope. My hands trembled. $10,000, a future I could still have. College, a fresh start, a normal life. But would it really be my life? Jezebel hadn't spoken this whole time, but I felt her watching. Her fingers toyed with the edge of her dress, golden eyes flicking between me and her master. I took a shaky breath. What happens if I refuse? Cromwell sighed as if he were bored of the question. You'll leave. He gestured lazily toward the door, but the house will follow. It always does. The shadows curled in the corners of the room. I clenched my jaw. There had to be another way. I wasn't like a dahlia. I wasn't going to end up on a shelf. Then an idea struck me. You said this house takes people, I said carefully. It swallows them up. But what happens when something leaves? Cromwell's expression flickered. Jezebel stiffened. For the first time, I saw something like curiosity in the demon lord's eyes. I pressed on. If things can be trapped here, maybe they can be taken out. Cromwell tilted his head, amused. You think you can steal from me? I think, I said, voice steadier now, that I might have something you don't. Silence. The bookshelves seemed to breathe. Jezebel's golden eyes darkened. Brandon, she said lowly, be very careful. Cromwell tapped his fingers against the desk, considering me. Finally, he smiled. Very well, he mused. Let's see if you can. The aquarium shuddered, the creatures inside twisting. The bookshelves groaned, the mist thickening between them. The air shifted, and I knew in that moment I had just made a dangerous gamble, one I could not afford to lose. Cromwell's smile was slow, predatory, a lion watching a wounded gazelle. You want to take something from me, he mused, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. That's bold, Brandon, foolish perhaps, but bold. The shadows in the corners of the office stirred. Jezebel didn't speak, but I could feel her tension, the way her claws tapped against her arm as she watched us. I swallowed the lump in my throat. You said yourself that everything has a price. So what's the cost of getting someone out? Cromwell's black eyes gleamed. The cost of freedom, he murmured. Oh, that is a steep price indeed. The aquarium behind him shuddered. Something inside stirred, pressing up against the glass. A bloated thing with too many limbs, its mouth stretching too wide. Its whispering voice slithered through my mind, though I couldn't understand the words. Cromwell ignored it. He tapped the desk, and in an instant the bookshelves began to move. They twisted, stretching impossibly tall, then collapsed inward, forming a spiral around us. The golden names on the spines glowed faintly in the dim light. Adalia's book was still there, still waiting. Cromwell's voice was smooth as silk. You want to take a soul from my house, Brandon? Then you must play for it. A chill crawled up my spine. A game, I said. Cromwell's lips curled. Naturally. Jezebel let out a slow breath. Master? Cromwell silenced her with a look. The bookshelves settled, forming a perfect ring around us. Here is my offer, he said, placing his hands flat on the desk. You may pick one soul from my collection. If you win, they walk free. His voice dipped, just slightly. But if you lose... The air hummed. The aquarium rippled. Then I claim you, Brandon. No second chances. No delays. The words sent ice through my veins. This was it. I could feel the weight of Jezebel's stare, the way the house seemed to hold its breath. I had no idea what kind of game Cromwell was about to play, but I knew one thing. This was my only chance. I straightened my spine. I accept. The moment the words left my lips, the room changed. The floor split open, revealing a staircase spiraling downward into pure darkness. A low, distant hum echoed from below. Cromwell rose from his chair, adjusting his cuffs. Then let us begin. The descent Jezebel led the way, her golden eyes dim in the dark. I followed her, my footsteps echoing against the smooth, cold stone. Cromwell walked behind me, his presence heavy, his amusement palpable. The deeper we went, the more the air changed. It wasn't just colder, it was thicker. Like the walls themselves were closing in, breathing, watching. Jezebel glanced back at me. You don't know what you're doing. I swallowed hard. I don't have a choice. She didn't argue. At the bottom of the stairs, a massive iron door loomed before us. It was covered in scratches, deep ones. Jezebel placed a hand against it, murmuring something under her breath. The metal groaned. Then slowly, the door swung open. The game room. The space beyond was impossible. The walls stretched into infinity, spiraling like a massive cavern, but the ceiling was nothing but a void. The floor was smooth black stone, inlaid with a giant golden circle. At the center stood a table, simple, black, waiting. Cromwell walked past me, his footsteps eerily silent. He slid into one of the chairs, gesturing for me to do the same. Jezebel remained by the door. Cromwell's voice was almost kind. "Take your seat, Brandon." I hesitated, then obeyed. The moment I did, the circle on the floor flared to life. Golden light surged upward, forming a cage around us. The air buzzed, and a strange, low humming filled my skull. Cromwell sighed, rolling his shoulders. "The rules are simple." With a flick of his wrist, a deck of cards appeared in front of him. They weren't normal cards. The symbols were twisted, sharp angles, eyes, symbols I didn't recognize. "This is a game of fate," Cromwell said. "One round. You draw, I draw. The higher card wins." My hands felt ice cold. Cromwell smirked. "You may choose the deck we play with," he continued, gesturing. "My deck? Or yours?" I frowned. "I don't have a deck." His smile deepened. "Oh, but you do." A new deck appeared before me. Plain, simple, ordinary playing cards, the kind you'd find in any gas station. I felt Jezebel's stare from the shadows. Cromwell's golden deck shimmered in the dim light. "Choose wisely," he murmured. My mind raced. There was no way in hell I could trust his deck. Every fiber of my being screamed that it was rigged, that those shifting symbols held secrets I didn't understand. But my deck, was it any better? Cromwell watched me with hungry patience. "Your time is running out." I forced my breathing to steady. I reached for my deck. Cromwell let out a soft laugh. "Interesting." The cards shuffled themselves, hovering mid-air. The golden circle burned brighter. Then one card slid toward me, face down, waiting. I hesitated, then flipped it over. The King of Spades. My pulse thundered. Cromwell smiled. "Not bad." He reached for his own deck, plucking a single card. He flipped it over with a lazy flick of his wrist. The card glowed. My stomach dropped. Ace of Spades. Cromwell exhaled in amusement. "Unfortunate." The golden light shifted, the cage tightened, the air grew heavier. Jezebel tensed. Cromwell tilted his head. "Looks like you belong to me now." The golden light closed in. I could feel it wrapping around my chest, dragging me down. I gasped. No, this couldn't be it. I wasn't going to end like this. And then, something snapped. The golden light flickered. Cromwell's smile vanished. Jezebel's eyes went wide. I felt something shift, like a thread being pulled, a rule being broken. The cards before me changed. The King of Spades, it twisted, burned, transformed, into the Ace of Spades. Cromwell's expression darkened. "Interesting," he murmured. The golden cage shattered. I gasped for breath. Jezebel stepped forward. Cromwell exhaled, rubbing his temples. "Well," he muttered, "that wasn't supposed to happen." I clenched my fists. "Looks like I win." For the first time since I had met him, Cromwell looked genuinely surprised. His fingers drummed against the table, his black eyes narrowed in thought. The golden sigils that had once caged me flickered, unstable, as if reality itself had skipped a beat. Jezebel was still frozen near the door, golden eyes wide. That shouldn't have happened," she whispered. I forced myself to breathe. "Looks like I win," I repeated, keeping my voice steady. Cromwell's mouth twitched, not quite a frown, but close. Then, just as quickly, the amusement returned. He laughed, a deep, rich chuckle that sent a fresh wave of unease crawling up my spine. "Fascinating," he murmured, picking up the altered card and flipping it between his fingers. "I underestimated you, Brandon, a mistake I don't make often." The house groaned, low and resentful. Cromwell stood slowly, stretching as if shaking off a long nap. Well, a deal is a deal. You've earned your prize. A book tore itself free from the shelves behind him. I flinched as it slammed onto the table in front of me. Adalia Ross. The cover pulsed beneath my fingertips, warm like something alive. I hesitated. What do I do? Cromwell sighed as if the answer was obvious. Open it, of course. I swallowed hard, then carefully pulled the book open. The pages moved on their own, flipping wildly. Then, in a sudden burst of air, a shadow erupted from the paper. The shape of a girl. She collapsed onto the table, gasping for breath. Adalia. Her face was pale, her dark hair hanging in tangled waves, the same girl who had saved me from the void, who had sacrificed herself to buy me time. And now she was here, alive. I reached for her shoulder. Adalia. Her eyes snapped up to mine, and for the first time I saw the full weight of the years she had lost. She had been trapped, frozen, a soul stored away like an object. And now, she was free. Her lip trembled. Is this real? I nodded. You're out. She blinked once, twice, then suddenly she threw her arms around me, gripping my shirt as if afraid I'd vanish. Thank you, she whispered. A slow clap echoed through the chamber. Cromwell's smirk had returned. How touching. I felt Adalia tense against me. Don't celebrate too soon, little mortals, he continued. Winning one round doesn't mean the game is over. A cold sensation crawled up my spine. What does that mean? I demanded. Cromwell sighed, as if explaining something to a particularly slow child. You broke a rule, Brandon. That complicates things. Jezebel stiffened. Master, you didn't say… He waved her off. I said he could take a soul if he won. I didn't say the house would be happy about it. The floor rumbled. The shadows shifted. The air felt wrong. Cromwell's black eyes gleamed. The house doesn't like to lose. A crack splintered through the walls, the golden circle beneath us shattering. The aquarium behind Cromwell ruptured, sending a flood of dark water and writhing creatures slithering onto the floor. Jezebel grabbed my arm. Run! I didn't need to be told twice. I pulled Adalia to her feet, my legs already moving. The door we had entered from was gone, replaced by a twisting hallway that hadn't been there before. Behind us, the air roared, the house itself screaming in fury. Cromwell didn't move. He merely watched, smiling. Good luck. The house is awake. The corridor stretched and warped as we ran, the walls pulsing like a living thing. Doors appeared and vanished. The floor beneath us cracked, revealing glimpses of endless darkness. Adalia gasped for breath beside me. What's happening? The house is pissed, Jezebel snapped, yanking us forward. It's trying to take you back. A sound echoed behind us, a deep guttural growl, not from one thing, from many. I risked a glance over my shoulder. The walls were moving, not shifting, crawling, hands, faces, twisted forms emerging from the wallpaper, stretching toward us, their mouths open in silent screams. My stomach lurched. What the hell? Lost souls, Jezebel muttered. People who failed the game. The house keeps them. I ran faster. Adalia stumbled beside me, her legs weak from years of being trapped. I grabbed her wrist, practically dragging her forward. Ahead, the hallway split into 3 separate paths. Which way? I gasped. Jezebel cursed. They all lead to different dangers. We have to pick one. Adalia's grip on my arm tightened. Then we don't stop running. I clenched my jaw, left, middle, right. Behind us the walls shrieked. The hands reached closer. My breath shook. Then, without thinking, I grabbed Adalia and took the middle path. The hallway twisted around us, the air warping, the walls blurred, shifting into something else entirely. And suddenly, we weren't in the corridor anymore. We were standing in my childhood bedroom. I froze. The bed was exactly the same. The posters on the wall. The little wooden desk where I had once done my homework. Adalia let out a shaky breath. This isn't real, is it? Jezebel's voice was grim. No. I turned in slow circles, my heart pounding. Then why does it feel like it is? The shadows at the edge of the room stirred. A soft voice whispered, "Stay." I stiffened, because I knew that voice. It was my mother's. I turned toward the sound, my breath caught in my throat. A figure stood in the doorway, not a monster, not a demon. My mum. She looked exactly as I remembered. Dark curls, soft smile, kind eyes. She reached for me. "Brandon, honey," she said gently. "Come here." I couldn't move. Something inside me ached. I hadn't seen her in years. Adalia grabbed my wrist. "Brandon, don't." Jezebel's voice was sharp. "She's not real." I swallowed hard, but the thing in the doorway, she looked so real. She took a slow step toward me, her smile widening. "Sweetheart, you're home. It's safe here. No more running." The house was trying to keep me. I clenched my jaw. Slowly I stepped back. Her expression flickered, just for a second. Then, her skin split open, the mother in front of me ripped apart like paper, something twisting and writhing beneath, a thing with no face, no eyes, just hunger. I grabbed Adalia's hand. "Run!" Jezebel threw open the closet door. "This way!" The thing behind us screamed. And we ran, straight into the darkness. The darkness swallowed us whole. I didn't know how long we were falling, seconds, minutes, hours. The air roared past me, weightless, endless, suffocating. I still gripped Adalia's wrist, but I couldn't feel Jezebel anymore. Then suddenly, we hit something. The impact knocked the breath from my lungs, and I tumbled across a hard, ice-cold surface, skidding to a stop. I groaned, forcing myself upright. My body ached, but I was alive. "Adalia," I called, my voice echoing in the emptiness. A soft cough to my left. "Here." I turned and immediately froze. We weren't in the mansion anymore. The space around us was vast, endless, stretching out in all directions like a cosmic abyss. The ground beneath us was smooth, black stone, veined with faint golden cracks, pulsing like a heartbeat. Above us, nothing. No ceiling, no sky, just a void. And in the distance, rising from the dark, stood a single massive door. It was carved from bone-white wood, towering and ancient. Runes lined its surface, glowing faintly in the dimness. A whisper brushed against my ear. "Not meant for you." Adalia shuddered. "Where the hell are we?" A rustling sound made me whip around. Jezebel. She staggered to her feet a few feet away, rubbing her temple. "Shit," she muttered. "This is bad." I swallowed hard. "What is this place?" She exhaled slowly, rubbing her arms as if trying to ward off a chill. "The house is in between places, right? It doesn't exist in normal space, but sometimes, when it's desperate enough, it tries to send people somewhere worse." My stomach twisted. Worse than the mansion? Jezebel's eyes flickered to the door in the distance. "Yeah." Adalia wrapped her arms around herself, staring at the pulsating cracks in the ground. "So, what do we do?" Jezebel chewed her lip, eyes narrowing. "We need to get out before it figures out we're still here." I frowned. "Before what figures out?" The ground trembled. A deep, distant thud reverberated through the void. Adalia grabbed my arm. "That didn't sound good," Jezebel cursed. "The house doesn't like to lose its guests," she muttered. "And if we're here, that means it hasn't fully decided if it's letting you go." A second thud, this time closer. The golden veins in the ground flared brighter, pulsing faster. Then something moved in the distance. I barely saw it at first. A ripple in the void, a shape shifting at the edges of reality. Then it took a step forward. A figure, tall, impossibly thin, with elongated limbs and a void where its face should have been. Adalia inhaled sharply. "Brandon!" More shapes moved behind it, hundreds. Jezebel grabbed my wrist. "Run, now." The chase, we sprinted toward the door, feet pounding against the stone. The air behind us twisted, the whispers growing louder. The things were faster. I could hear them gaining, long, spindly limbs scraping against the ground, distorted murmurs overlapping into a cacophony of voices. "Stay. Belong. No leaving. No leaving. No leaving." My legs burned. My lungs ached. Ahead, the door loomed closer. Jezebel reached it first, slamming her hands against the surface. The runes flared, resisting her touch. "Hurry the hell up," she snapped. Adalia and I stumbled forward, skidding to a stop. I could feel the creatures behind us now. The air was colder, thicker, suffocating. My skin crawled with the sensation of 1,000 unseen hands reaching for me. Jezebel hissed something under her breath, tracing symbols against the wood. The runes shifted. A deep groan echoed through the void, and the door creaked open. Golden light spilled through the gap, blinding. Jezebel shoved me forward. Go! I didn't hesitate. I grabbed Adalia's hand and plunged through the light. Back to reality. The moment we crossed the threshold, the air shifted. Gone was the suffocating void, the pulsating black stone. Instead, I felt solid ground beneath my feet. I gasped, blinking against the sudden brightness. We were outside. I turned, heart still hammering. Behind us, the mansion stood in eerie silence. The once towering structure looked different. Smaller, weaker, as if something inside had fractured. Jezebel staggered forward, rubbing her arms. Damn, that was close. Adalia stared at the mansion, her breath shaky. Are we actually out? I hesitated. I didn't trust it yet. Then I saw it. The iron gates were open, the same gates that had locked behind me when I first entered. The ones that had trapped me here. A slow, disbelieving breath escaped me. We're free, I whispered. Adalia let out a choked laugh. Holy shit. I turned to Jezebel. What about you? Her expression flickered. Then, with a slow smirk, she tapped her horns. I was never trapped here to begin with, remember? My deal with Cromwell is complicated. I frowned. Then why help us? For the first time she hesitated. Then finally she muttered, because I wanted to. Adalia exhaled, rubbing her arms. So what now? I stared at the open gates, at the dark road beyond, at freedom. Then my stomach twisted, because I knew this wasn't over. Not yet. The mansion had let us go, but only after I had broken a rule. And houses like this, they don't forget. I met Adalia's gaze, then slowly I turned back toward the road. We go home, I said. For now. The road stretched before us, dark and silent. The iron gates of the Cromwell estate remained open behind us. A wound in reality that should have been stitched shut. I half expected them to slam closed the moment we stepped past, but they didn't. They just waited. The mansion had let us go, but I could feel its eyes on my back. Adalia rubbed her arms, still shivering. It's over, right? I wanted to say yes, I really did. Jezebel chuckled darkly. If you believe that, you're dumber than I thought. I shot her a look, but I couldn't argue. Something felt wrong. The night was too still, the road too quiet. I took a deep breath and turned toward Adalia. You have somewhere safe to go? She hesitated. Her brown eyes flickered with uncertainty, like she hadn't even considered the question. Then finally, she nodded. My brother. If he's still out there. I don't know what year it is. The weight of what she'd lost settled over her like a shroud. You'll find him, I said, and I meant it. She gave a weak smile. Jezebel stretched, rolling her shoulders. Well, this has been fun, but I'm not your babysitter. I'll be on my way. She turned, then stopped. We followed her gaze, and my stomach dropped. The road was gone, not in the way it should have been. It wasn't blocked or overgrown. It just didn't exist anymore. The street faded into absolute nothingness, stretching into an endless, consuming void. Adalia sucked in a sharp breath. No. Jezebel clenched her jaw. That's not possible. But it was. Because the mansion hadn't fully let us go. I turned slowly, and the gates were closed. Back inside, Jezebel didn't even hesitate. She marched back to the gates, cursing under her breath, and grabbed the bars. The moment she touched them, they burned her hands. She yelped, stumbling back, black smoke curling from her fingertips. Adalia flinched. Don't, Jezebel snapped, cradling her hands. I'm fine. But she wasn't fine. Because this was wrong. Adalia's voice was tight. Why would it do this? Jezebel sighed. Because Cromwell plays by his own rules. I clenched my fists, trying to fight the rising panic. We beat him. I changed the game. We should be free. Jezebel gave me a look. And yet here we are. The shadows shifted behind the gates. A familiar honey-smooth voice drifted through the night. Did you really think it would be that easy? I felt my blood run cold. A figure emerged from the darkness, stepping through the gates without opening them. Cromwell. His black eyes gleamed, his smirk lazy and amused. "Oh, Brandon, you really are something special." I took a step forward. "Let us go." His smirk widened. "I did. You just didn't ask the right questions." My stomach knotted. "What does that mean?" He spread his arms dramatically. "You said you wanted to leave. I allowed it. But you never asked if you were leaving the game." The air seemed to ripple. Jezebel's face darkened. "You son of a bitch." Cromwell grinned at her, delighted. "Flattery will get you nowhere, dear." Adalia's voice was sharp. "You're cheating." His expression flickered, just for a second. Then he sighed, rolling his shoulders. "Call it a loophole." The golden runes along the gate flared, shifting, reforming. The mansion breathed, and the contract rewrote itself. My pulse roared in my ears. "You're changing the rules again," I said, voice shaking with anger. Cromwell's smile didn't fade. "Of course, it's my game, Brandon. I always win in the end." The mansion shuddered, its silhouette warping. The trees beyond the gate bent inward, consumed by something unseen. Adalia's fingers dug into my arm. "Brandon, I think we're running out of time." Jezebel cursed. "We need a plan. Now." I swallowed hard, heart pounding. The game wasn't over. Cromwell was still playing, and this time he wasn't going to let us leave so easily. "A new deal." Cromwell stepped closer. The world around us darkened. The mansion loomed, breathing, its windows filled with shifting shadows. "Here's what's going to happen," Cromwell said, his voice honeyed. "You have two choices." He raised one elegant hand, fingers curling slightly. "Choice one, you walk back inside willingly. No tricks, no chase, no extra suffering." I felt sick. "And choice two?" I asked, though I already knew I wouldn't like the answer. His smirk sharpened. "The house decides for you." The ground beneath us cracked. Adalia tensed beside me. Jezebel's hands clenched into fists. "Bastard," Cromwell sighed. "Must we do this the hard way?" I met his gaze, and I knew. There was no escape. Not really. The house had never let anyone go. It had only let us think we were free. But that didn't mean I had to play by its rules. I inhaled slowly, then I looked him right in the eyes and said, "Fine, but I have a condition." Cromwell raised a brow. "Oh," I exhaled, "if we go back in, we set our own terms." Jezebel stiffened. "Brandon," but Cromwell grinned, and that scared me more than anything, because it meant he was interested. "Now this," he murmured, "is getting fun." The golden runes flared brighter. The mansion shook. The game wasn't over, but maybe, just maybe, I could find a way to end it. For good. Cromwell's grin widened at my words, his sharp teeth glinting under the moonlight. His black eyes glittered with something unsettling. Amusement, hunger, anticipation. I didn't know. But I had his attention, and that was dangerous. "Terms?" he mused, tilting his head. "Now that's intriguing. Tell me, Brandon, what exactly do you think you can bargain for?" The air felt heavy, thick with unseen pressure. The ground beneath us shifted, golden cracks pulsing like a heartbeat. The mansion loomed in the distance, its windows watching us. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to keep my voice steady. "You like games, right?" I said. "Then let's make it one." Jezebel hissed under her breath, but she didn't stop me. Cromwell's expression darkened with intrigue. "Go on." I clenched my fists. "If we go back in, we don't play by your rules," I said. "We set our own. A contest. Something fair. Something we actually have a chance to win." Adalia stiffened beside me, her fingers tightening around the fabric of her sleeves. Cromwell hummed, tapping his fingers together. "A contest, you say? How interesting." The mansion creaked, its walls stretching, breathing, shifting. The house was listening. Jezebel muttered, "Brandon, do you have a death wish?" I ignored her. Cromwell sighed, dramatic as ever. "I do love a good game, but what, pray tell, would I get out of this?" "I already have you trapped, darling. Why should I give you an advantage?" My throat was dry. "Because you're bored." His eyes flashed. I pressed forward. "You're powerful. You're ancient. And yet, here you are, still playing with your food. I gestured to the mansion. If we're going to be part of your twisted little world, let's make it interesting. A slow, deliberate silence stretched between us. Cromwell's lips curled upward. He was pleased. Very well, he said. You've intrigued me, Brandon. I accept your offer. The air shifted. Adalia exhaled shakily beside me. Jezebel muttered another curse. However, Cromwell continued, eyes gleaming, if I am to entertain this renegotiation, I must set my own stakes. My stomach twisted. Of course you do. He took a step forward, the golden runes on the iron gate twisting, shifting. The contract was already rewriting itself. Here are my terms, he said smoothly. You will return to the house willingly. No resistance, no tricks. Once inside, we shall play a game of my choosing, one that I will not rig in my favor. That last part felt like a lie. And if we win? Adalia asked cautiously. Cromwell smirked. Then you may go free, truly free this time. I frowned. And if we lose? His grin sharpened. Then you stay. Forever. The night seemed to close in, the darkness pressing against my skin like a tangible force. The mansion breathed, its walls stretching eagerly, awaiting our return. Adalia shuddered. Jezebel remained silent. I forced myself to hold Cromwell's gaze. If I refused, we were trapped here anyway. If I accepted, we at least had a chance. A slim, razor-thin chance. But it was better than none. I inhaled. Fine. Cromwell let out a delighted chuckle. Excellent. The iron gates groaned as they slowly swung open. The mansion beckoned, and the game began again. Inside the house again. The second we stepped past the gates, the air changed. The temperature dropped. The ground beneath us shifted, the world tilting unnaturally. The house was pleased. Jezebel muttered, I hate this. Adalia shivered beside me. Are we sure we can actually win? I wasn't sure of anything, but I couldn't tell her that. I squared my shoulders. We'll figure it out. Cromwell led the way, his coat trailing behind him like liquid shadow. The massive doors of the mansion swung open on their own, revealing the candle-lit hallway beyond. But something was different. The house didn't look quite the same. The walls had shifted, the hallways stretching at odd angles. The air smelled of burning parchment and something metallic. Adalia hesitated. Is it just me, or… Cromwell chuckled. Oh, it's not just you. The house adapts. Jezebel clicked her tongue. Great. We stepped inside and the doors slammed shut behind us. The sound echoed through the void. A new set of rules had begun. The game of shadows. Cromwell stopped in the middle of the grand foyer, turning toward us with a pleased expression. Now for the rules of our little contest. I braced myself. The game is simple, he said. You will navigate the house, but unlike before, you will not merely be surviving. The air grew heavier. You will be hunting something. I froze. Hunting. What? Adalia asked warily. Cromwell's grin widened. A shadow. Something stirred in the dark corners of the foyer. A figure moved. Tall, thin, limbs too long, body shifting like smoke. Its face was missing. Adalia inhaled sharply. What the hell? This, Cromwell purred, is your prey. The shadow twitched. Jezebel's voice was low. You're making us chase one of your monsters. Cromwell chuckled. Oh, it won't be that easy. The air rippled. The shadow does not want to be caught, and it will do everything in its power to evade you. But if you fail… The lights flickered. The house will decide your punishment. My stomach knotted. Of course it wasn't going to be straightforward. Cromwell clapped his hands. Let the game begin. The candles flickered out, and in the darkness the shadow ran. Chasing the dark. I didn't hesitate. Move, I shouted, shoving forward. Adalia and Jezebel followed, feet pounding against the marble floor. The shadow darted ahead, its form blurring as it slipped into the winding hallways of the house. Doors slammed open on their own, creating new pathways. The house was changing, twisting, laughing. Jezebel cursed. Brandon, what the hell are we supposed to do? I don't know, I admitted. Just don't lose sight of it. Adalia gritted her teeth. Easier said than done. The shadow twisted around a corner, its movements unnatural, inhuman. Cromwell's laughter echoed from somewhere unseen. The game was on, and the house was hungry. The shadow darted ahead, moving like smoke in the wind, twisting and stretching in ways my mind refused to comprehend. I sprinted after it, my pulse hammering. My legs burned, my breath was ragged, but I didn't stop. We couldn't stop. Adalia was right beside me, her face pale but determined. Jezebel followed, moving faster than I thought possible, her dark coat billowing behind her like a shroud of smoke. The corridor stretched ahead, impossibly long. The walls melted, shifting in and out of reality, like oil swirling in water. Doors appeared and vanished. The floor rippled like a living thing. This wasn't just a chase, the house was fighting back. Left, Adalia shouted. The shadow veered down a side passage. We followed and nearly ran straight into a wall of arms. I skidded to a stop, my heart lurching. Arms, hundreds of them, burst from the walls, long and rotting, fingers twitching, nails jagged. They reached for us, clawing, grabbing. Jezebel cursed and yanked out a knife, slashing at the limbs. A skeletal hand clamped around my wrist. I yelled, twisting free. The flesh was wet and wrong, nails digging into my skin. "Don't let them touch your face," Jezebel shouted. A severed arm crawled along the ceiling above me, fingers twitching. The walls groaned as more limbs pushed through, writhing. The house was alive, and it wanted us dead. Adalia fired her gun. The blast echoed, the bullet ripping through the mass of limbs. The hands shrank back, wailing, before the walls sewed themselves shut like a festering wound. Panting, I grabbed Adalia's wrist. "Move!" The shadow had escaped deeper into the mansion, and we had no choice but to chase it. The house is changing the rules. The corridors twisted into a spiral, looping into themselves. No matter which way we turned, the mansion stretched, contorted, folded. We were running in circles. I growled in frustration. This thing is leading us nowhere. Jezebel wiped sweat from her brow. Number the house is leading us nowhere. Adalia slowed beside me, eyes darting over the shifting walls. "It's cheating," she whispered. The house chuckled. Not Cromwell, not Jezebel, not the shadow, the house itself. I felt it crawl over my skin, a sensation like fingers dragging across my spine. Something whispered in my ear. "What will you trade to leave?" I turned sharply, but nothing was there. Jezebel's breathing hitched. "Did you hear that?" Adalia's fingers tightened around the revolver. "I don't think we're playing Cromwell's game anymore." I felt it too. This was different, darker. We weren't just in a haunted house. We were in something that was alive, something that wanted to keep us here, forever. The walls pulsed, the floor lurched, and the shadow, our prey, stood at the end of the hall. Waiting. Watching. Only now it wasn't alone. The others. There were figures standing with the shadow, figures wrapped in darkness, their bodies barely formed, shapeless, writhing, flickering between existence and nothing. Dozens of them. Jezebel's voice was cold. "Those are—" I swallowed hard. "The ones who lost. The house's other victims, the ones who had played and failed." They stepped forward. Their faces weren't visible, but I could feel them staring. A distorted voice rasped, "You don't belong here." Adalia raised the gun. "Neither do you." A sound like laughter crawled through the air. "You are mistaken," the voice whispered. "We never left." And then they charged. Run or die, they moved like a flood of shadows, rushing toward us on too many legs, too many arms, shifting and twisting in ways that broke reality. I turned and ran. Jezebel cursed and sprinted beside me. "This is some bullshit." Adalia fired wildly over her shoulder, gunshots cracking through the air. The bullets barely slowed them down. I reached a door, locked. Jezebel slammed her shoulder against it. "Help me!" I threw my weight into it. The wood splintered. The creatures were right behind us. A claw scraped across my back.
Burning pain seared through my skin. Jezebel screamed something, but I didn't hear her. I was already falling through the door. Adalia landed next to me. Jezebel slammed the door shut, and the hallway disappeared. Gone, like it had never existed. I gasped for breath, my back throbbing. I reached behind me. My hand came back wet. Blood. Jezebel wiped her face, her hands shaking. That was new. Adalia looked like she was about to be sick. Are they still out there? We listened. Silence. Then, a slow clap. Cromwell's voice curled through the air, pleased. Well done, my dear contestants. The air shifted, the house shuddered, and I knew. The game wasn't over yet. The slow, deliberate clapping sent a shiver down my spine. Cromwell's voice curled through the air, smooth as silk, sharp as a blade. Well done. Very well done. I must say you've lasted longer than most. The mansion shifted, the air thickening, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Jezebel's face was unreadable. Adalia, pale and shaking, tightened her grip on the revolver. I swallowed the lump in my throat. No more games, no more tricks. Where are the others? Where's my sister? Cromwell chuckled, a sound like ice breaking over stone. Ah, Julia, yes, she's quite the fighter. The walls rippled. A doorway that hadn't been there before peeled open from the wallpaper. Beyond it, a staircase leading down. She waits below, Cromwell purred. Shall we? The descent. The staircase was wrong. It wasn't part of the house. It was something deeper, something that didn't belong in reality. The walls weren't wood anymore. They were pulsing, alive, shifting under flickering torchlight. My stomach twisted. Jezebel leaned close. We can't trust him. I know, I whispered, but we don't have a choice. One by one, we stepped into the dark. The stairs stretched farther than they should have, spiraling downward, deeper and deeper. My pulse hammered in my ears. Adalia whispered, This place doesn't end, does it? No one answered. At last, the staircase opened into a massive chamber, and in the center of it, Julia, the ritual chamber. She was trapped inside a circle of burning runes, eyes shut, body frozen mid-motion, as if caught between time itself. I stepped forward, but Cromwell blocked my path. Careful, he murmured. The ritual is delicate. Jezebel grabbed my arm, her fingers ice cold. Brandon, look at the walls. I turned, and my blood ran cold. The chamber wasn't just a room, it was a graveyard. Hundreds of people were fused into the walls, their faces contorted in silent screams. Hands clawed outward, frozen in agony, their hollow eyes following us. Cromwell sighed. I do so hate when guests outstay their welcome. His shadow stretched, horns curling higher, eyes burning like dying stars. Now then, shall we discuss your options? The deal. Cromwell's smile was razor sharp. You've impressed me, Brandon, surviving my house, besting my demons, resisting my temptations. He gestured lazily. So, I'll make you an offer. His voice dripped with amusement. A simple trade, your sister's freedom, for yours. Silence. Jezebel's knuckles turned white around her knife. Adalia was trembling, her eyes darting between me and Julia. Cromwell leaned in, voice honey smooth. You'll serve me, just as Jezebel will, just as Adalia will if she stays. But your sister, she'll go free. She'll live a normal life. No memories of this place. His grin widened. A fair price, don't you think? Every nerve in my body screamed at me. I stared at Julia, unmoving, frozen in time. Jezebel whispered, Brandon, don't. Adalia's eyes burned. There's another way. Cromwell's laughter rattled the walls. Oh? Do tell. I clenched my fists, and I made my choice. Breaking the game. I lunged for the runes. Jezebel shouted. Adalia fired her gun, but my mind was set. I slammed my hand down onto the burning symbols. Pain ripped through me. The sigils flared, white-hot agony tearing into my flesh. Cromwell's smile disappeared. Foolish boy, he growled. The entire mansion shook. The runes fractured beneath my touch. A piercing scream, not Julia's, but the house itself, ripped through the air. The walls cracked, the bodies in them wailing in unison. Reality shattered. The mansion was coming apart. Julia's eyes snapped open, and she moved. The house collapses. The ritual collapsed. Cromwell snarled, his form warping, shadows twisting around him. The house itself screamed, walls folding in, the floor splitting beneath our feet. I grabbed Julia's arm and ran. Jezebel and Adalia followed, dodging falling beams, leaping over cracks in reality as the mansion caved inward. Cromwell's voice echoed, distorted and furious. "This isn't over." The staircase reappeared ahead. We sprinted upward, the house collapsing behind us. I felt the void reaching, tendrils of nothingness snapping at my heels. Jezebel threw herself through the doorway. Adalia yanked Julia forward, and then light. Escape. We hit the ground, outside. The night air was cold, sharp, real. I gasped, my body aching. My hands burned where the sigils had seared them. Jezebel groaned, rolling onto her back. Holy shit. Adalia helped Julia sit up. My sister blinked, confused. "Brandon." I pulled her into a hug. "You're okay. You're safe." I looked back. The mansion was gone, not burning, not crumbling, just gone, like it had never existed. The aftermath days passed. Julia remembered nothing. Adalia vanished. No goodbyes, no trace. Jezebel stuck around just long enough to warn me. "This kind of place doesn't just disappear, Brandon," she muttered. "It'll come back. He will come back." She hesitated. "And when he does, he'll come for you first." Then she was gone too, and I was left wondering, what had I unleashed? Epilogue. The flyers return. 5 years later, I found the flyers again, pinned to a telephone pole, stuffed into mailboxes. Spend the night at the Cromwell estate. Earn $10,000. No strings attached. My hands trembled. Julia was missing, and I knew the mansion was back. But this time, I wasn't going to play by its rules. This time, I was going to burn it down.
The Silent Screams, the channel of interesting horror stories. If you are new on this channel, then don't forget to subscribe The Silent Screams and press the bell icon for interesting stories. Before we move on, please donate me in the form of subscribe.